Hello, it is 8 a.m. local time here in Hanoi, and you're tuning into VTV News. I'm Dương here with the latest headlines. Vietnam sends diplomatic note against China to the United Nations chief. Assured foreign investors work on in Loman Southern Economic Zone. And later on, the crew of sunken Vietnamese fishing ship share their story with reporters in a press conference. We'll now begin with the top news here in the bulletin. Vietnam's permanent mission to the United Nations has requested UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon to circulate a diplomatic note from the Vietnamese Foreign Ministry to the Chinese Foreign Ministry. This action would make it an official document of the 68th session of the UN General Assembly. The diplomatic note protests China's violations of Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf as defined by the 1982 UN Convention on the Laws of the Sea.
The document strongly articulates Vietnam's opposition to China's argument, which says that the placement of oil rig Haiyang Shiao 981 is in the Shisha Islands and, as such, is a Chinese territory. Vietnam reaffirmed that the so-called Shisha Islands, as China refers to them, is in fact Vietnam's Hoàng Sa or Paracel archipelagos, which was first illegally occupied by China in 1974. Vietnam has repeatedly requested that China remove its oil rig and escort ships from Vietnam's waters and stop all provocative actions that pose a threat to peace, stability, and maritime safety and security in the region. The country also absolutely rejected China's statement which accused Vietnam of setting up 57 oil and gas blocks in the disputed waters, including 7 oil and gas fields and 37 drilling platforms. Vietnam reaffirms its viewpoint that China does not have any legal or factual basis for its claims. Therefore, Vietnam has resolutely rejected this wrong-headed opinion and announced that all of Vietnam's operations are conducted in its continental shelf in accordance with the UNCLOS. The Vietnamese permanent mission to the UN asked the UN Secretary-General to circulate its diplomatic note as an official document of the 60th session of the UN General Assembly. On May 29th, the mission also issued a press release on the above-mentioned issue.
Attending the 13th Asian Security Summit, also known as the Shangri-La Dialogue, on Saturday, Defense Minister General Phùng Quang Thanh demanded that China immediately remove its oil rig from Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf. He also reaffirmed Vietnam's stance of settling the issue through peaceful measures in accordance with international law.
Defense Minister General Phùng Quang Thanh said in order to manage risks that may cause disputes, all countries should share a common perspective on international responsibilities, especially the role and responsibility of major powers.
All
countries should share the same duty of maintaining peace and stability. They should also show respect for international law and the United Nations Charter, as well as the independent sovereignty and territorial integrity of others. At the same time, they must not use force or threaten to use force to settle disputes. Furthermore, they should enhance cooperation on the basis of equality and mutual respect for mutual interests, regardless of whether they are small or big.
General Thanh said the army plays a very important role in solving disputes between countries. Every action of each commander and soldiers must be strictly controlled, especially in relation to the use of weapons, ships, planes, and other military facilities. In answer to the question of whether or not Vietnam will bring China to the International Court of Justice over the matter, General Thanh said that would be the country's final recourse.
We are considering the process of filing a lawsuit with the International Court. That would be our last solution. We are hoping it won't come to that and that both sides can sit down together. Vietnam and China used to face disputes over land ownership. We had to negotiate for years, but we finally settled it. We've also negotiated on the demarcation lines of the Gulf of Tonkin. Vietnam is committed to settling this dispute through peaceful measures.
Attending the Shangri-La Dialogue, Vietnam has showed the world its stance of settling disputes in the East Sea through peaceful measures in accordance with international law. In this way, the country is helping to maintain peace, stability and security in the region.
Along the same news line, following the incident in Bình Dương in which extremists took advantage of protests to damage and loot businesses, a recent report of the People's Committee of Bình Dương Province shows that 97% of enterprises have returned to normal operation. Now, the remaining 3% of enterprises have stated that they would resume operations in July. Enterprises which signed contracts with domestic insurers have revealed that damage evaluation is currently underway to calculate the compensation claims. The provincial authority is also seeking ways to support enterprises that only had minor insurance products or had no insurance package at all. It is expected that by the end of June, the Bình Dương Social Insurance Company will renew insurance policies for at least 40,000 laborers. Now, Long An is in the southern region focal economic zone and has some 28 industrial zones, which attracts some 1,300 investors, 500 of which are foreign invested enterprises. Now, in the days of civil unrest following protests against China's actions in the East Sea, authorities in the province employed special measures in order to ensure the businesses here stayed in operation.
In May, together with tightened security for investors, Long An organized many visits to FDI companies in its 28 industrial zones. These visits help foreign investors understand the Vietnamese government approach to guaranteeing safety for the firms.
Visit from the provincial and district authorities, as well as from the Industrial Zone Management Board, warmed our hearts. These were timely visits that really did reassure us.
When riots broke out in Bình Dương Industrial Zone, we didn't know how the situation would unfold. But the local authorities handled the situation sensibly, so the incident didn't affect us. There were no strikes or acts of vandalism here, and the initial unrest soon passed. The authorities even paid us visits to cheer us up.
Throughout May, Long An authorities paid 60 visits to FDI companies. Besides gaining a better understanding of the firm's work, Long An leaders also updated the enterprises on the favorable and safe investment environment that exists in Vietnam as a result of the government's sound policies.
When we first met them, they expressed concern for their personal safety and for their investment. However, after we reassured them with information on the government's countermeasures, they were much happier and felt safe to continue.
The fallout from public unrest following China's illegal installation of an oil rig in Vietnamese sovereign waters didn't hit FDI enterprises here. In fact, their production value and foreign currency revenue increased 2% and 13% respectively in the past month. The year-on-year statistics for businesses in Long An are equally impressive. All this is thanks to Long An's careful measures to safeguard its investors' enterprises.
Moving now on to other news. The construction industry's negative impact on the environment due to the large amount of natural resources it uses has meant that the research and application of environmentally friendly materials has become an urgent mission, not only for the government but also for local enterprises as well. The use of green building materials will soon become, it is said, the norm in Vietnam's construction industry.
In recent years, the local building market has welcomed the introduction of adobe brick. Instead of being baked in the oven, which consumes a lot of energy, brick manufacturers use machines to press and block these bricks. Lê Hoài An, director of Hang Minh Company and a leading advocate of Adobe bricks in Vietnam, affirms that Adobe bricks are now a preference within the local market.
The use of green construction materials is an inevitable trend elsewhere in the world and in Vietnam as well. In recent years, architects have begun designing structures built from green materials. This creates a potential market for Adobe brick.
The booth of Pinked Ad Ali Company in the Viet Build Fair 2014 is showcasing a new green construction material of pressed bamboo flooring. This product has attracted a lot of customer interest due to its high durability and relatively cheap prices compared to wooden flooring.
Bamboo is an environmentally friendly alternative to wood because it can grow over the course of a few months, compared to timber, which would take decades to generate the same amount. Currently, there is a worldwide trend of replacing wooden products with bamboo ones.
Adobe brick and pressed bamboo flooring are just the first of a whole host of green building materials to be introduced in Vietnam. Green building materials which have a low impact on the environment are commonly used worldwide, especially in developed countries. Addressing the importance of such materials, the head of Vietnam's Institute for Building Materials, Lương Đức Long, affirms that development can only be sustained when it is in line with environmental considerations.
We encourage firms to use green materials wherever possible, and many enterprises have achieved success in producing green materials such as Adobe brick or tempered glass. We need to promote these materials so that more customers become aware of them and use them.
Meanwhile, the government and agencies, including the Ministry of Construction, are working on a system to evaluate and classify green products. Green products will certainly be a key factor in the development of Vietnam's modern economy.
Coming up now on our live edition of VTV News, the crew of the sunken Vietnamese fishing ship greets in a press conference with reporters. And later on, it's off for an overview of the bustling showbiz industry in the southern metropolis of Ho Chi Minh City.
Exotic Vietnam is an intriguing blend of many charms. This land is where all manner of stunning landscapes await like a visual feast, rivaled only by the beauty of its people and their abundantly rich tradition and culture. Here is where you can relive the past in richest color or live it up in the bright lights of the big city. With so much more to offer, Vietnam is simply unforgettable.
Welcome back to our live edition of VTV News. On the morning of Saturday, which was yesterday, international news reporters held a press conference with the crew of the ship DN 90152. Now, this was the very ship that was sunk by China earlier this week. The press conference was an opportunity for the crew to tell their story to the world.
Reporters from CNN, Viet Weekly, Asahi Shimbun and Yomiuri Shimbun heard from the ship's owner, Huỳnh Thị Như Hoa, and her crew about the events leading up to the incident of the afternoon of May the 26th, when the ship was sunk by Chinese vessels. The fishermen told reporters that the ship that rammed and sank them was 6 times bigger and ironclad. Following the interview, foreign reporters expressed their concern over the situation.
Okay, so the situation is very dangerous. I know about it, so I just hoping that they should start the peaceful negotiation. Yes. Yeah, we Japanese also very worried about this. So I also, as I said, so China and Vietnam should start the peaceful negotiation. Yeah.
Because without fishing boat, they cannot afford their life. Yeah. I hope the problem will be solved in a peaceful manner.
Prior to the meeting with the fishermen of ship DNA 90152, reporters accompanied the Vietnamese Coast Guard ship 4032 to the Paracel Islands from May the 26th to May the 31st.
We have seen with our own eyes the belligerent chases conducted by Chinese ships as they prey on the Vietnamese Coast Guard vessels. The closest distance was as near 30 meters to 50 meters, while on Vietnam's sovereign waters. The footage and shot we brought back will serve as crude evidence of the Chinese ships' reckless maneuvers. We have sent these images back home through various means.
Having met with the crew of ship DNA 90152 and with their own eyewitness accounts, foreign reporters now have convincing evidence of China's careless and violent behavior towards Vietnamese fishermen.
Vietnam television will air a multi-broadcast program that is live from Hanoi as well as the EC Park in Spratly and Paracel Road in Da Nang City, and also from the Lý Sơn Island in Quảng Ngãi Province. And this will be on June 8th at 8 p.m. local time. Now, the program will include real-life stories from the northern corner of Lũng Cú Mountain to the furthest southwestern point on the Thổ Chu Islands. Now, these stories will tell the tale of the silent sacrifices made by Coast Guards and of the peaceful life of the people living in the Lý Sơn Islands. Each story is the living proof of Vietnamese sovereignty. The program will also feature live interviews with people at each broadcast location to show the rest of the country the everyday lives of the people on the Vietnamese islands. This is one of Vietnam Television's key programs in a campaign to raise public awareness of the strategic position and inherent value of Vietnam's islands. Now, Ho Chi Minh City is not only known for its developed economy and trade, but also for its booming entertainment business. Showbiz, as it's commonly known, requires not only talent and technique, it is said, but also a sophisticated technical infrastructure, including both lighting and sound effects. The following report will take a closer look at the glamorous world that is the showbiz of Ho Chi Minh City.
Ho Chi Minh City is the top destination for hopeful Vietnamese singers and entertainers. As the leading city for entertainment business, the city comes alive every night with live concerts, bars and coffee house gigs, as well as theatre performances.
Ho Chi Minh City has a long-standing tradition of nurturing the performing arts. It has long been a hub for entertainers, and the most famous performers and the most eager audiences in the country all gather here. The city is also home to many technicians, lighting and sound specialists, as well as the top suppliers for the necessary industry equipment, which is why the entertainment business here is so vibrant.
However, despite its many advantages, the city has to overcome many difficulties in order to reach an international audience.
Vietnamese showbiz is very developed here thanks to the support of independent businesses. But we still need more guidance and support from the government. Take concert venues, for example. Vietnam doesn't have any venue that meets international standards. Currently, most shows take place either in stadiums or small venues. This is something that independent business can't help with.
Since the 1970s, Ho Chi Minh City has seen many extraordinary live concerts performed by the top entertainers in the country. Vietnam isn't short of talents, but more support will be needed to truly tap its potential and reach an international audience.
Now, marking today is the International Day for Children's June 1st, and the Action Month for Children was launched yesterday, Saturday, in Hòa Bình Province by the Ministry of Labor, War Invalids and Social Affairs. Now, the topic for this month is, quote, to act towards a violence-free society for children. It is being held to raise awareness for the care and education of children. This month calls for people to join hands in protecting children from violence, exploitation, and abuse, so that they can live in a safe environment that fosters their future development. And for many students living in areas prone to flooding, going to school can be a treacherous journey. Now, in an effort to mitigate the dangers faced by children in such areas, the Vietnamese Red Cross, in coordination with the American Red Cross, are spearheading a program throughout the summer vacation, which will provide students with lifebuoys as well as emergency response training.
These students face dangers every time they go to school, especially during the rainy season. Statistics shows that drowning is a major cause of deaths among Vietnamese children.
70% approximately of youth in Vietnam do not know how to swim. Now, in terms of the awareness building we provide to them, we tell them that in the case of a natural disaster, flash flooding, typhoons and the like, is to stay away from floodwaters.
As part of the program, the Vietnamese and American Red Cross presented floating backpacks to students and equipped them with the survival skills needed in emergency situations such as earthquake, fires, and flooding. The project is now being implemented in flood-prone provinces including Quảng Nam and Quảng Ngãi.
We donated 4,000 floating backpacks to 25 schools throughout Quảng Nam and Quảng Ngãi provinces. Of course, this cannot meet the full demand, but we are calling for more. More importantly, we want to inform everyone about disaster response training and make them join our course.
During a pre-test, and then in a post-test, 73% have in terms of storing food or water in safe places, storing important documents, working with their parents to reinforce their homes. They are asked not only to act on the information that they learn, but to share it with their family members.
After the summer break, the students here will begin a new school year and, of course, a new flood season. However, at least over 4,000 students have now been equipped with the skills needed to survive a flood situation.
Now, in the following, we'll take a look at the major news that made headlines over the past week.
On Monday, a Vietnamese fishing boat was rammed and sunk by a Chinese vessel near the Haiyang CO 981 oil rig. The Vietnamese fishing boat had 10 fishermen on board when the attack happened. Some Vietnamese vessels operating nearby managed to save all crew members. The ship was later towed to the shore for repairs, and the crew members returned safely to their homes. Later on Tuesday, China's oil rig Haiyang CO 981 was moved to its new position, which is 25 nautical miles southwest from Chiton Island, a part of the Paracel archipelago. However, the oil rig is still located within Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, over which Vietnam holds full jurisdiction. Over the course of the week, Chinese vessels continue to harass, block, and attack Vietnamese boats with water cannons. Reports from the Vietnam Fishery Control Department show that China is defending the illegal oil rig with dozens of vessels and aircraft, including warships.
China's actions continue to be met with criticism from abroad. Notably, on Wednesday, Japanese Prime Minister announced in front of the Japanese National Diet that Japan would cooperate with ASEAN countries to prevent China from using violence in the East Sea. Mr. Abe expressed his concern over tensions in the East Sea and stressed that Japan is currently working with ASEAN countries to implement legal measures to curtail China's aggressive actions in the East Sea. Meanwhile, United States President Barack Obama said during a speech at West Point Military Academy that the U.S. will force China to adhere to international principles and laws in the East Sea, as well as in other regions. Obama said it would not be easy for America to participate in the resolution of East Sea tensions, since the country's Congress has not yet passed the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. He also stated that joining this convention will increase American security and global leadership.
The 13th Asia Security Summit, or Shangri-La Dialogue, kicked off in Singapore on Friday. A high-ranking delegation from Vietnam, led by Minister of Defense Phung Quang Thanh and Deputy Minister of Defense Nguyen Chi Vic, attend the summit. Current tensions in the EC and East China Sea are high on the agenda during the summit. On the sidelines of the summit, the Vietnamese Minister and Deputy Minister of Defense have held separate meetings with their counterparts from the United States, Russia, China, Singapore, amongst others. At these meetings, the Vietnamese delegates expressed the concerns about the situation in the EC and confirmed Vietnam's determination in resolving the tension by peaceful means.
This week, the National Assembly continued its seventh session in Hanoi. Amongst others, the National Assembly deputies discussed the draft revisions to the law on housing, the real estate law, and the law on enterprises. They also commented on the amended regulations concerning the management and usage of government funds in business. On Friday, the deputies reached a consensus to add protest laws to the 2015 Law and Ordinance Building Program. It will stipulate place, scale, and agenda for protests to prevent conflict and vandalism to businesses and the public.
A peacekeeping training center was established in Hanoi on Tuesday to underline Vietnam's commitment to the UN peacekeeping force. Deputy Prime Minister Vũ Đức Đam, Minister of Defense Phung Quang Thanh, and UN Under-Secretary General Amira Haq attended the opening ceremony. Vietnam's Peacekeeping Center functions as an advisory and training agency for the Ministry of Defense, which manages the operations of the Vietnam Peacekeeping Force. Vietnam has also appointed its first 2 officers to South Sudan to begin the operations as part of the UN peacekeeping mission in the African country starting June 2014.
In Hanoi on Thursday, the Vietnam Center for Economics and Policy Research released its 2014 annual economic report entitled The Constraints to Growth. According to this report, although Vietnam's macroeconomic activities indicate positive transitions, challenges still exist. The report mentions that China's illegal deployment of the Haiyang-Shiyou 981 oil rig has posed certain challenges to the 2 countries' economic ties, particularly when Vietnam's manufacturing sector is closely tied to the Chinese market. This year's annual report has forecast a GDP growth rate ranging between 4.15% and 4.88%. Both figures are lower than last year's growth rate.
Wrapping up the bulletin now is your updated weather forecast. And that is the end of the English News Bulletin at this hour. Do log on to vtv4.vn for more updated news. We'll be back again at 3 p.m. local time today for another bulletin. Thank you and goodbye for now.